That night changed everything in ways I could never have imagined. It started as a simple request from my stepmom, Jessica. She asked me to stay home while my dad went on his usual fishing trip. At the time, it seemed perfectly normal. Just another weekend with the two of us. I had no idea that night would test the boundaries of our relationship and leave a mark that could never fade. The house felt unusually quiet that morning. My dad's absence was palpable, and the silence was strange. After finishing my homework, I was ready to relax when Jessica called me into the living room. "Can you help me with something?" she asked, her voice soft but slightly uneasy. "Sure," I replied, curious. I walked into the living room, where she was sitting on the couch. Jessica, usually calm and composed, seemed different. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and there was an intensity in her gaze that made me uneasy. "Come sit down," she said, patting the cushion beside her. I obeyed, unsure of what was coming. "You've grown up so much," she began, her tone light but heavy with meaning. "You're not the little boy I used to know." My heart raced. This wasn't like her. Our relationship had always been friendly and casual, but this felt different. "I guess," I mumbled, unsure how to respond. She leaned in slightly, her eyes locked on mine. "No, really," she insisted. "You've changed, and I think we both know it." The words sent a chill through me. I forced myself to ask, "Jessica, what are you trying to say?" Her gaze lingered before she sighed and stood, walking to the window. "Your dad's gone for the weekend," she said softly, her back to me. "It's just the two of us here." I nodded, my unease growing. She turned to face me, her expression unreadable. "There are things I've wanted to talk to you about," she said, her voice steady. "Things I've never had the courage to say. Until now." "What things?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She stepped closer, her eyes holding mine. "About us," she said plainly. The air felt thick, and I struggled to understand what she meant. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to face. "Jessica, this is insane," I managed to say, standing abruptly. "You're my stepmom. We can't— This isn't right." But she didn't back away. "Why not?" she murmured, her voice calm but insistent. "We're both adults. We don't have to follow anyone else's rules." I shook my head, trying to resist the pull I felt toward her. "This is wrong," I insisted, but my voice wavered. Her hand brushed against my arm, sending a shiver through me. "What if it's not?" she whispered, her touch lingering. I wanted to push her away, to leave the room and pretend this never happened, but I couldn't move. Something held me there, and I hated myself for it. The days that followed were a blur of tension and confusion. I tried to avoid her, but Jessica always found ways to be near me. The tension between us simmered, unspoken but undeniable. Every glance, every accidental touch felt charged, like a spark threatening to ignite. One night, unable to bear the silence any longer, I found myself downstairs. Jessica was on the couch, a glass of wine in her hand. She looked up when she saw me. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly. I shook my head, sitting down on the other side of the couch, as far from her as possible. For a while, we sat in silence. Then she spoke. "I've been thinking about us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jessica, we can't—" I started, but she cut me off. "Why are we pretending there's nothing between us?" she asked. "We both know there is." Her words hit me like a punch. Deep down, I knew she was right. There was a strange pull between us, something I had tried to ignore, but couldn't deny any longer. "We can't do this," I said weakly, but the words felt hollow. Jessica leaned closer, her hand resting lightly on mine. "Who decides what's right and wrong?" she whispered. "We can decide for ourselves." I tried to resist, but her presence was overwhelming. When her lips brushed against mine, all rational thought vanished. That kiss changed everything. It was a line we could never uncross, a decision that would alter our lives forever. In the days that followed, the tension between us grew unbearable. Every moment together felt like we were walking on a knife's edge, and I knew it was only a matter of time before we fell. I wanted to stop, to pull away before it went any further. But some part of me, some dark, hidden part, didn't want to stop. He then did a lot to me, which cooled down the fire in his body,